The night I proposed, my fiancée said, "You will never be my priority. My friends always come first." When I showed her she was not mine either, she went crazy begging me to stop. I spent 3 months coordinating with the owner of Marcato, the Italian spot in Portland, where Maris and I had our first date. I dropped $6,000 on a custom ring from a jeweler in the Pearl District and even managed to bribe the pianist into playing her favorite song, a ridiculous, sentimental piece she loved. When she said yes, the whole restaurant erupted in applause. Champagne appeared magically, and strangers rushed over to congratulate us. It was one of those perfect, soft, focused moments that felt stolen directly from a movie. I, Wesley, a 29-year-old, felt a rush of completion. Finally, I had built something so perfect, so undeniable, that I would be valued completely. We got back to my two-bedroom apartment in Southeast around midnight. We were both riding that engagement high, talking about the disbelief of it all, and doing the whole celebration thing newly engaged couples do. Afterward, lying there in the dark, my mind was already racing ahead. I pictured honeymoon destinations, sketched out seating charts in my head, and debated spring versus summer wedding dates. I was building our future in the silence. That is when she dropped the bomb. "You know, you will never be number one, right?" she said. "The crew comes first." Just like that. It was casual, like she was ordering takeout or noting the weather. I actually laughed. I thought she was messing with me, perhaps testing the boundaries of my devotion. "What? Come on, babe?" I chuckled, rolling toward her. She rolled toward me, smiling like she had just shared some adorable, harmless quirk. "You know how tight I am with the girls. Senna, Britt, and Elan have been with me since sophomore year at USC. That is 9 years. You have been around for 2. The math is not that hard, Wesley." The happiness drained out of me, so fast I felt physically dizzy, like the gravity in the room had shifted. The smell of expensive champagne on my breath suddenly tasted like ash. "Maris, we literally just got engaged," I said, trying to keep my voice low and level, failing completely. "You are telling me your college friends will always take priority over your husband?" "Well, yeah," she replied, sounding genuinely confused as to why I was even asking. "They have been through everything with me. Every breakup, every job disaster, every family crisis. They are my real support system. Wesley, you are just the guy I am building a future with." Cool. I lay perfectly still. The cold, hard meaning of those words clicked into place. I was not the leading man in her life. I was just some dude who had stuck around long enough to get a supporting role. I was the reliable, financially secure set piece for the backdrop of her actual, important life with the crew. My deep, seated need to be essential, to be the priority I never felt I was growing up, was instantly negated. The $6,000 ring on her finger meant nothing. It was the bronze medal package. I did not sleep that night. I could not. Lying next to that sentence felt like slow suffocation. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, I could not take it anymore. I got up, quietly got dressed, and went for a long, pointless drive through the city streets. I drove because lying next to her, next to that truth, felt like inhaling poison. The feeling of slow suffocation, that realization that I had only been a supporting player in my own engagement, was something I needed to confirm I was not hallucinating. I called Theron, my best friend, at 2:30 in the morning. Nothing screams healthy engagement like phoning your buddy at 2:30 in the morning to confirm your fiancé is actually insane. He picked up on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. "This better be good. Wesley," he mumbled. Maris said I will never be number one, that her friends come first. We literally just got engaged, I said, staring at the empty, dark street. The words sounded flat and ridiculous even to my own ears. There was dead silence on the other end, followed by the sound of him sitting up suddenly. Brother, what? Yeah, like it was some terms of service pop-up I forgot to read. I explained, the bitterness starting to seep in. Apparently, I am signing up for the bronze medal package. I get to pay the bills and watch the movie from the back row. That is insane, Wesley. That is not how a partnership works. That is how a pet-owner relationship works. Theron corrected instantly, now fully awake and spitting fire on my behalf. You are saying she literally told you, the man she just accepted a ring from, that you will always be less important than people who do not even live with her? Correct, I confirmed. I stared at my steering wheel, wishing it would give me a software update that included better judgment. Well, I guess I am not engaged anymore. Correct? He agreed. That is messed up. Cut the cord now, man. If she thinks that is acceptable to say, let alone believe, you need to go. His validation was the anchor I needed. My deep internal conflict, the old wound that made me tolerant of poor treatment because I felt I had to constantly earn my priority, finally broke. Theron gave me permission to be angry, to stop enabling. I drove back around 3:30 in the morning. Maris was awake, propped up in bed, her phone lighting up the dark, and she was laughing softly into it. Senna says we should do a rooftop engagement party, she said without looking up, her voice bright with plans that did not involve me in the details. Sounds perfect, right? I stood there in the doorway, watching her type, watching her grin at whatever high-priority message Senna was sending. In that moment, something in my head went quiet and cold. The emotional part of my brain, the part that loved her and hoped, simply ceased to function. I was not sad anymore. I was operational. Yeah, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Sounds perfect. She did not hear the edge, or maybe she did not care. She barely glanced at me before her phone buzzed again. She smiled and was already typing back while heading to the bathroom. I have got some work stuff to handle today. I lied, knowing I needed space to execute. Perfect, she said, disappearing into the hallway. I will probably be gone in a few hours. The girls want to hear every detail in person. She was out the door in less than 20 minutes, phone already glowing as she texted the crew. That gave me time. That gave me the precious, necessary window to begin lining things up. First, I secured my boarders. I called my landlord, Theron's uncle. Hey Wesley, he answered. What is up? Need to give you a heads up, I said. Maris is moving out. The lease stays in my name. I will handle the notice, but I wanted you to be aware that she is vacating the property. He was confused but agreed. The feeling of taking control of my physical space was the first tangible step toward reclaiming myself. Worth. It was the first act of self-advocacy in what I knew would be a difficult and ugly war of attrition. Maris was not on the lease. I had never added her. Something in my gut, that old internal conflict warning me about achieving true worth, had thankfully stopped me from making that permanent, legal mistake. The next phase was to tally the full cost of my enabling. The immediate threat of displacement was handled, but the emotional ledger still had to be balanced. I needed to see the full, quantified cost of being her backup plan, the cost of constantly trying to prove I was worthy of priority. Maris had been living in my two-bedroom apartment for 18 months. When she moved in, we sat at my kitchen table, I remember the light hitting the wood grain and agreed she would split the rent and utilities evenly. My rent was $2,400 a month. Her half should have been $1,200. She even sent me $1,200 the first month with rent in the Venmo note. After that, it had turned into a series of vague excuses and minimal, petty payments of maybe $200 here or there, always followed by an expensive, impulsive purchase on my credit card. I pulled up my banking app and started methodically tallying. 18 months times $1,200 is $21,600. I conservatively estimated she had paid $3,000 in total over that time, if I was being generous. That left $18,600 in unpaid, agreed upon rent. Add in the utilities she would skip, the groceries she promised to cover, but never did, and the streaming services I paid for that she used constantly. I was not even mad about the sheer quantity of the money. I was mad she thought I was too slow, too blinded by my need to be loved, to notice the long con. She had been coasting on my dime while treating me like a supporting character. And that was before the loan. About 6 months back, Maris had been in a significant financial jam. Her company had delayed a large bonus, and she had an enormous tax bill due, something around $8,000, that she had not planned for. She had been distraught, talking about how humiliating it would be to borrow from her parents. I, still the enabling one, had offered to help. I offered to simply give her the money, but she insisted on a formal loan. She said it was more professional and that she would pay me back within 6 months once her bonus hit. She had actually insisted we write it up proper, signed and dated, because she wanted it official. I had honestly forgotten about the document until that night. I pulled the signed agreement from my file cabinet. $8,000. Signed, dated, with payment terms clearly stated. She had made exactly one partial payment of $500 back in March, and then nothing. The 6-month deadline had passed 2 weeks ago. That piece of paper, I realized, was not just about $8,000. It was a powerful piece of legal leverage, a tool to ensure justice and finality. After I put the documents away, I killed the autopay on the utilities, the internet, and the expensive meal delivery service she had insisted we needed to. Healthy. These were small, silent acts of sabotage, preparing the battlefield. When Maris got home hours later, she was practically vibrating with excitement. "The girls are so excited," she chirped, dropping her purse and starting to show me her phone, a barrage of screenshots from the group chat, all capital letters and excessive emojis. Senna is already looking at venues. Britt knows this photographer, who is amazing, and Ilan thinks we should do destination. Maybe Tulum? Sounds great, I said, my voice empty of emotion as I plated the chicken I had made for dinner. Whatever makes you happy. She hugged me from behind, squeezing tightly. This is why I love you, Wesley. You just get it. Most guys would be all jealous and insecure about how close I am with the girls, but you understand that they are part of who I am. I smiled and kissed her temple, then served dinner. I was completely detached. She was planning a destination bachelorette party while I was planning her exit route. Same energy, different planets, and zero emotional connection left on my side. The financial evidence and her casual dismissal of my worth had solidified my decision. She was no longer a person I loved. She was an obstacle to be managed, and the next phase of the operation was the public demonstration of her true status in my life. The legal notice was drafted and ready But I knew a piece of paper would not land the message. It would simply start a fight. The lesson had to be lived. The lesson, in what it felt like to be completely irrelevant, a piece of furniture in a room full of people who mattered more. Wednesday night, Maris went out for engagement drinks with the crew. I stayed home and finalized the notice, printing 2 copies, one for her, one for my records. It was formal, clean, demanding 30 days to vacate, citing Oregon law that clearly favored me since she was not on the lease. I put her copy in a plain white envelope with her name written neatly on the front. But I did not give it to her yet. That part needed the right dramatic context. I had a better idea brewing. On Thursday night, I texted Theron, Dashiell, and Dev. Game night at my place. Saturday, 6 p.m., bring snacks. Theron, who was now fully invested in my self-preservation, replied immediately. This is going to be interesting. Very, I confirmed. I spent the next 2 days preparing, acting completely normal. I worked, I went to the gym, I did meal prep. I was quiet, calm, and utterly detached. The antithesis of the needy, insecure guy she had been dating. Every minute of normalcy was a performance for an audience of one Maris. It was exhausting maintaining the facade, but I was motivated by the ghost of the man who had tolerated being second place for 18 months. Maris was on the couch, scrolling through bridesmaid dresses on her phone when I told her my plans. Having the guys over Saturday. Poker, games, the usual. She barely looked up. Cool. I want you to stay, I added. That got her attention. She immediately put her phone down and turned to me, her face lighting up with a genuine, pleased smile. Really? You want me there? That is so sweet, Wesley. I thought you preferred those nights to be just for the guys. Sure. Why not? I shrugged, keeping my expression neutral. I watched her process this moment, saw the gears turning. Finally, her face seemed to say, Wesley is prioritizing me in front of his friends. Finally, I am being included. It was exactly the thought I needed her to have. What she did not know was that I had already briefed the guys. Told them exactly what Maris had said to me on our engagement night. They understood the assignment delivered the experience of being a non-priority. They were my enforcers of emotional justice. Saturday rolled around, and Maris spent the entire afternoon getting ready. She was preparing not for a casual poker night, but for a social examination. She changed outfits twice, kept asking if she looked okay, and reapplied makeup obsessively. She wanted to impress them, to show them she was the main event. The guys showed up right on time. Theron brought local IPAs. Dashiell had soda. Dev showed up with a box of pizza and a grin that clearly stated he was ready for the mission. Maris came out of the bedroom in stylish jeans and a nice top, all smiles and practiced charm. Hey guys, she said warmly, trying to ease into the circle they had immediately formed near the poker table. Hey Maris. Theron replied, his tone flat, like he was acknowledging a coworker in the break room. He instantly pivoted to me. Yo, Wesley. Remember that time at Dashiell's cabin when you caught that base with your bare hands? Dashiell cracked up. Dude almost drowned going after it. Maris's smile flickered but held fast. She tried to insert herself. Should I order more food? I can get Thai from that place you guys like. Dev glanced up from setting up the cards. Nah, we are good. Maybe wings later, Wesley? Yeah, could do wings. I confirmed. Maris stood there, her offer hanging in the air, completely unacknowledged. I watched her face, seeing the first genuine hint of confusion start to creep in. But she was a fighter. She pushed through it, because Maris always pushes through when she is not getting the attention she thinks she deserves. We started playing poker, and the stage was set for the painful, necessary lesson. As the card game continued, the conversation flowed around Maris like water, with every anecdote and inside joke locking her out of the tight, established circle I had meticulously protected. She sat on the couch, pretending to be absorbed in her phone, but I could feel the heat of her attention directed squarely at us, waiting for an opening. Dashel was telling a story about a disaster at his gym. So, this guy is benching 315. No spotter, and I swear he gets pinned. Maris saw her chance and cut in with forced enthusiasm. Oh my gosh, that happened to Wesley once, remember, babe? Haha. Yeah, Theron said, his eyes never leaving Dashel. Then, immediately back to the narrator. Wait, so how did they get the bar off him? Did they call a trainer? Dashel continued, detailing the escalating absurdity of the gym incident, and the conversation flowed around Maris, as if she had never spoken. Her comment sank without a single ripple. She tried again 10 minutes later, attempting to build a bridge between our worlds. That is like when Wesley and I went to that climbing gym and... Yeah, totally. Dev said, not looking at her, he addressed me directly. Wesley, were not you saying you wanted to hit that new bouldering place next weekend? Yeah, we should go next weekend? I confirmed. Maris's mouth closed. She had been mid-story, mid-sentence, but the conversation had pivoted straight back to me. Nobody cared about the rest of her anecdote. This pattern repeated relentlessly. She would add something, get a two-word acknowledgement at best, and then watch the conversation seamlessly continue with me, as if she were a speed bump they had already passed. Around 7:30, Theron brought up a recent breakup, adding the philosophical context for the lesson we were teaching. I just got tired of being the second option, you know, like, if you are with me, be with me. Commit or bounce. Real talk. Dashel agreed, nodding gravely. Loyalty is everything. You cannot half-heart a relationship. Dev shook his head. Some people just do not know how to prioritize what is right in front of them. Like, who does that? They were not looking at Maris, not saying her name, but I saw her shift uncomfortably on the couch. Her jaw tightened. She knew. Wesley has always been solid, though. Theron continued, glancing over at me with genuine respect. Dude shows up. That is rare. Facts. Dashel confirmed. If I am committing to someone, that is my person. Simple as that. Maris's face was getting red. She got up, went to the kitchen, came back with a soda she did not open, and tried to look unbothered. She was extremely bothered. She tried one final time to muscle her way in. Dashel was telling a story about a spontaneous road trip, and she jumped in. Wesley and I are planning a road trip soon, she interjected.
We are thinking. Oh, nice,
Dashel said, cutting her off smoothly. Then, he looked at me. Wesley, remember when we drove to Colorado and your tire blew out in the middle of nowhere? Dude, that trip was insane, I said, laughing easily. They launched into the story, full of ancient inside jokes and callbacks she could not possibly follow. She sat there, trying to smile like she got it, but she was on the outside of a locked door hearing everyone laugh. By 8 o'clock, she was done trying to look casual. She was no longer on her phone, just sitting there staring at us, and at me specifically, with a look that was half confusion and half something that looked like panic. Then, she stood up, forcing a bright, desperate energy into the room.
You know what? I think we should all play a game together.
Like, together? She said louder. As a group, I will get Cards Against Humanity. No one responded. Theron glanced at me, then back at the table. We are good with poker, thanks. No, Come on, she insisted, her voice climbing. It will be fun, Wesley. Do not you think? We are in the middle of a hand, Maris, I said, calm as anything. She stood there for a second, visibly calculating her next move. Then she did the thing I had seen her do 100 times when she was not getting her way, the thing that revealed her main character syndrome. She forced herself into being the center of attention by announcing something self-aggrandizing. Oh my gosh, you guys, she said suddenly, her voice way too excited. I have to tell you something. I finally hit 10,000 followers on Instagram today. She was grinning like she had just cured cancer. Like, I have been working so hard on my content, and it finally paid off. Is not that crazy? Dead silence. Dashel blinked slowly. Cool. That is great, Maris. Dev looked back at his cards. Theron did not even acknowledge it, just reached for his drink. She stood there, her smile frozen, waiting for congratulations, for excitement, for literally anything. I mean, that is a pretty big milestone. She pushed, her voice high and thin. Most people never even get to 5,000, and my engagement rate is like really good now. I might even be able to do brand deals. That is awesome, I said flatly, without looking up from my hand. Wesley, you could at least act happy for me. She snapped. I finally looked up at her, meeting her eyes. You want me to stop my friend's poker night, so everyone can celebrate your Instagram followers. She faltered. The realization of what she had just done hitting her. You thought we would all drop everything and throw you a party for hitting 10,000, right now, during guys' night. Theron asked, his voice dripping with disbelief. Her face went bright red. I was not trying to make it about me. I was just sharing. By announcing it like you won a Grammy, Dashel said. Nobody cares about your Instagram, Maris. Dev shook his head. Read the room. She looked around at all of them, and then at me. I could see it. The moment she realized she had just made herself look completely desperate and shallow in front of my closest friends. I am going to go, she said, her voice shaking, grabbing her purse. I am going to go. Cool, I said. Drive safe. She left. The door slammed. The apartment went quiet for a second. Theron looked at me, bewildered. Bro, what the heck was that? That, I said, sitting back down, is what 18 months of being taken for granted looks like. After 2 hours of silence, Maris returned, but the quiet rage she brought with her was louder than any of the boys' laughter. The guys had left around 10:30, still dropping loud, pointed jokes about loyalty and commitment as they walked out the door, loud enough for the walls to remember. I was cleaning up, loading the dishwasher, when Maris walked in just before 11. She came in quiet at first, and I could feel her watching me from the doorway of the kitchen. What the heck was that? Her voice was tight, thin with suppressed fury. I rinsed a plate, carefully put it in the rack, and did not look at her. What was what? You and your friends, she snapped, stepping closer. I was there all night, and you treated me like I was just hovering, like I did not matter. I finally turned around and leaned against the counter, my arms crossed, feeling the cold, hard satisfaction of control. Huh. Weird feeling, right? Do not do that, she warned, her eyes blazing. Do not turn this into some kind of what, Maris? A lesson. A reality check. I delivered the words I had been rehearsing for 3 days, the core truth of the whole conflict. You told me I would never be your priority, that your friends come first. Always. So, I figured I would show you what that actually feels like from the other side. No mixed signals. No enabling. Just simple, Brutal consequence. Her face went from red to purple. That is completely different. How? Because, because my friends have been there for me for 9 years. And I have not earned basic respect after 2 years and an engagement ring? I countered, the logic cutting through her histrionics. Tell me exactly how that is different, Maris. Tell me why your friend's priority status is earned, but mine, the man paying for the apartment you live in rent-free, is worthless. She opened her mouth, closed it, and her frantic attempt to find an angle that made her right and me wrong was clearly short-circuiting. She could not find the loophole. This is nonsense. She finally spat out. You do not just ice someone out like that. They were not even rude to me.
That is what made it worse.
I was just there, in my own freaking apartment, and nobody cared. It is educational, I agreed. I have been living this for 18 months. Every time you picked a FaceTime with Senna over watching a movie with me. Every time you bailed on our plans because Brit needed something. Every anniversary, every birthday, every normal Tuesday night, I got whatever was left over after the crew took their cut. I never ignored you, Maris. You did worse. You made me think I mattered while constantly making sure I knew I did not. At least, tonight, you knew exactly where you stood. No mixed signals. No mixed messages. She was shaking now, but not from sadness. It was angry shaking, the kind that comes right before someone does something stupid and irreversible. You are a jerk, she hissed. Maybe, I said, maintaining the serene calm that had unnerved her all night. But I am a jerk who knows his worth. And it is more than third place. That is when she grabbed the vase off the side table. It was a heavy glass thing we had bought together, an insignificant piece of domesticity. For a second, I thought she was going to throw it at me. She did not. She threw it at the wall next to me instead. It exploded. The sound was deafening, the glass scattering everywhere, bits showering my face and arms. The plaster wall had a noticeable dent where the base hit. My ears were ringing, but I did not move. I just stood there, looking at her as the chaos settled. The sound was deafening, the glass scattering everywhere, bits showering my face and arms. The plaster wall had a noticeable dent where the base hit. My ears were ringing, but I did not move. I just stood there, looking at her as the chaos settled. The broken vase, the dent in the wall. This was the proof that she was not just selfish, she was unstable. Feel better? I asked, my voice still flat. She was breathing hard, staring at the broken glass like she could not believe she had done it. Then she looked at me, and I saw something in her face that almost looked like fear. She knew. She knew she had just crossed a line we could not come back from. The violence was her final, self-destructive attempt to regain control. I walked past her to the bedroom, came back with the plain white envelope and the signed loan document. I set them both on the counter between us. 30 days? I said, my voice low and final. That is your notice to vacate. You are not on the lease. This is my apartment. You have got until the end of the month to find somewhere else. Her face went white, the color draining instantly. Wesley? And I want the ring back right now. The shattered glass on the floor was the only physical remnant of the perfect life I had tried to build. Now, only legal cleanup remained. Maris stared down at the ring on her hand as if she had forgotten it was there. You cannot be serious. Dead serious, I replied, standing my ground by the counter. Ring. Now.
We are engaged,
she cried, her voice cracking with the immediate shift from fury to victimhood. We were engaged. Then you told me I would never be your priority. I said, reciting the facts like a prosecutor. Then you just threw a vase at my wall. So no, we are not engaged anymore. Give me the ring. Her hand went to her chest, protective of the diamond. This is insane. You cannot just. I can. And I am. You have got 3 seconds before I add destruction of property to the lawsuit I am filing. Lawsuit, she gasped. The word seemed to finally register the gravity of the situation, pulling her away from her emotional spiral and into cold reality. I picked up the loan document. I held it up for her to see the signatures in the formal, legal language. $8,000. You paid $500. That is $7,500 you still owe me. Plus, we are going to talk about the 18 months of rent. Your half comes to $21,600. You paid maybe $3,000 total. That is $18,600 in unpaid rent. Plus utilities you skipped, groceries, internet, all the stuff you said you would cover and did not. I set the papers down and looked at her. I am taking you to small claims for the loan. As for the rent, we had an agreement. You Venmo'd me with rent in the note the first month. After that, you just stopped paying. So, yeah, I will be pursuing that too. You are done coasting? She was staring at me like I was a stranger, the idealist she had used having been completely replaced by the executor. You are actually doing this. Over money? You threw a vase. Maris, I stated simply. I am not letting you play victim here. This is done. Ring. Her hands were shaking when she finally pulled the custom diamond ring off her finger. She set it on the counter between us like it was burning her. You are making the biggest mistake of your life, she whispered, tears finally starting to well up, a raw performance of sorrow that I knew was a desperate final tactic. Nah, I said, picking up the ring and pocketing it. Biggest mistake was putting that ring on your finger in the first place. Second biggest was letting you live here rent free while you treated me like the backup plan. 30 days. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. She stood there for another few seconds, breathing hard, and then grabbed her keys and purse and left. She did not come back that night. I swept up the glass, fixed myself a drink, and slept better than I had in weeks. The next 2 weeks were predictably rough. Maris moved into Senna's place, but still had stuff at mine. Her texts were a mix of begging and threats, which I ignored, responding only to practical ones about pickup times for her belongings. Theron helped me change the locks on day 3. On week 2, her friends decided to escalate things. I was working remotely one Wednesday afternoon when my doorbell started ringing. Not normal ringing, but aggressive, continuous ringing. I checked the video doorbell. Senna, Britt, and Ellen, the crew, were standing on my porch, looking ready to shoot a revenge music video. I opened the door but left the chain on. Can I help you? Senna stepped forward, the ringleader. We need to talk about what you are doing to Maris. I am not doing anything to Maris, I replied evenly. She is moving out. That is it! You kicked her out of her home! That was Britt, the aggressive one. My home. My lease, I corrected. She was never on it. You are being abusive? Elan accused, holding her phone up, clearly recording. This is financial abuse. Emotional abuse. I looked directly at the phone camera. Maris lived here for 18 months without paying rent. I have bank records proving she paid maybe 15% of what she agreed to. I also have a signed loan document for $8,000 that she defaulted on. If anyone has been financially abused here,
It is me. That is nonsense.
you are just mad she has friends who actually care about her. Senna was getting louder. I am not mad about anything, I stated simply. I am just done being treated like I do not exist. She told me I would never be her priority, so I made her not mine. Pretty straightforward? Let us in? Britt demanded. We need to get the rest of her stuff. Oh, she can come get it herself during the times we agreed on. You are not on the lease. You are not coming in. We are not leaving until you let us in. Senna declared, crossing her arms and planting her feet. The others following suit in their little solidarity moment. I pulled out my phone and dialed the non-emergency police line, putting it on speaker so they could hear it ring. Cool. Then I am calling the police for trespassing. Senna's face went from confident to confused in half a second. When the dispatcher answered, I gave my address and explained I had 3 people on my property who were refusing to leave after being asked multiple times. The dispatcher confirmed someone would be there in about 15 minutes. I hung up and looked at the 3 of them. You have got about 14 minutes to decide if you want to be here when they show up. I could hear the faint sound of sirens in the distance. Senna heard them too. Fine. We are leaving, but this is not over. Yeah, it is, I said. Do not come back. They scattered, walking down my driveway and throwing insults back at me the whole way. I watched them pile into Senna's expensive car and peel out just as the police cruiser turned onto my street. The officer took my statement, reviewed the video doorbell footage, and told me to call immediately if they returned. I went back inside and got back to work. Just 3 people learning that being loud does not mean being right. The eviction process, though dramatic, was working. 2 months later, the quiet of the apartment was a luxury, but the final, desperate echoes of the past still had to be faced. Maris was out by day 28, not even taking the full 30 days. A moving company came by, loaded up the last of her stuff, and that was it. No final conversation, no closure, just an empty space where her presence used to be. She texted me one last, I hope you are happy, and then blocked me. I was happy. The apartment was quiet. There were no more passive-aggressive notes about dirty dishes, no more waking up to her face, time laughter at 1 in the morning, and no more being the last priority on someone's list while paying for the privilege. I filed the small claims paperwork for the $8,000 loan 3 days after she moved out. The rent issue was trickier, harder to prove since most of it was verbal agreement. But the loan was airtight, signed, dated, with payment terms clearly stated. She would have to show up to court and explain why she thought she did not need to pay back money she borrowed. I blocked Maris's number, blocked her on every social media platform, and then blocked Britt, Elon, and Senna for good measure. Clean break. No loose ends. I spent the next few months living my life, finding immense satisfaction in the simplicity of being valued. I resigned the lease in my name only and hired a junk removal service to get rid of the fabric monstrosity of a couch Maris had picked out, replacing it with a leather couch I actually liked. I started hitting the climbing gym 3 times a week and lifting 4. I added 15 pounds of muscle without even trying because my cortisol was no longer constantly spiked from wondering if I mattered. My new casual relationship, the girl I had met at the climbing gym, turned into something more solid around month 5. Not because either of us was rushing it, but just because it worked. She had her own place, her own life, and her own friends. When we hung out, it was because we wanted to, not because someone was keeping score of who initiated last. She asked me once what happened with my ex-fiancée. I gave her the short version. She told me I would never be her priority, so I made her not mine. She nodded. Good for you. Most guys would have stayed and tried to fix it. You cannot fix someone who does not think anything is broken, I replied. Exactly, she confirmed. Then, my doorbell rang at 9 in the evening on a Tuesday. We had just finished Thai takeout on the couch, and she was scrolling through Netflix. I checked the video doorbell from my phone. Maris. She was alone, and she looked like absolute misery. Hair in a messy bun, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie that was definitely too big for her. Not the put-together Instagram girl I had known. She looked broken. You expecting someone? My date called from the couch. Not anymore, I replied. I closed the door, undid the chain, and stepped out onto the porch, pulling it mostly shut behind me. What do you want, Maris? Wesley? Her voice cracked immediately. Please, I need to talk to you. We do not have anything to talk about, I insisted. Please. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. 5 minutes. That is all I am asking. She leaned forward, trying to look past me into the apartment. Her eyes landed on the girl still sitting on my couch, and Maris's face did that thing where the gears are clearly turning, but nothing is computing. I stayed where I was. Talk. They kicked me out, she choked out. Senna, Britt, Ellen, all of them. Senna said I was a black hole, that I sucked up all the attention and gave nothing back. And then Britt agreed, and Ellen, and they all just... They told me they needed space. That they could not be friends with me anymore. She let out a shaky breath. I do not have anyone, Wesley. I have nobody. Not my problem, I said, the words coming out flat and easy. I know it is not, but She stepped closer. I stayed where I was. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. You were right about everything. About me putting them first. About taking you for granted. About all of it. Cool. Glad you figured that out, I replied. Please. I am sorry. I should have made you my priority. I see that now. You see that now because you are alone, not because you actually changed. I stated. That is not true, Wesley. I have been going to therapy. I have been working on myself. I looked at her, really looked at her, and all I felt was nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sympathy. Just cold, clear emptiness. Maris, you came here because you have no one else left. Not because you miss me. You burned through your friend group the same way you burned through me. And now you are scrambling for anyone to fill the void. You are not sorry you lost me. You are sorry you are alone. There is a difference. She was sobbing full on now. Please, Wesley. I will do anything. I will pay you back. I will be better. I will make you my priority. You are 2 months too late with that offer, I said. We cannot start over because I do not want to. I am good, Maris. Better than good. You are cruel, she cried, pulling away. No, I said. I am just not your safety net anymore. Goodbye. Maris. I went back inside and locked the door, watching through the video doorbell as she stood on my porch for a solid 3 minutes, crying. I did not change my mind. Eventually, she left. A couple of months later, I got a notice about the small claims court date for the loan. Maris did not show up. The judge ruled in my favor by default. I knew I would not see all $7,500, but I filed for wage garnishment anyway because principle matters. I ended up collecting about $4,000 over the next 6 months. Not the full amount, but enough to feel like justice got served. The apartment stayed mine, quiet, clean, but not empty. I sat back down on my new leather couch, grabbed my drink, and watched a documentary with someone who actually wanted to be there. I went to bed that night, feeling absolutely nothing about turning her away. Some people only want you when they have no other options, and I was nobody's last resort. The bronze medal was returned, and I finally won the gold in my own life.